Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating look at something absolutely central to us, our brain and nervous system.
Yes, incredibly complex systems.
And we're going to approach this deep dive maybe through a slightly different lens today. We'll be exploring arguments for intelligent design that are based on just how intricate these biological systems are.
That's right. Our source material for this discussion, it offers a perspective connecting that biological complexity with, well, creative intention. It looks beyond purely evolutionary explanations.
So what's our mission here today?
Essentially, to unpack how the brain and nervous system work, how they regulate things, how they allow for, all our unique human experiences. And importantly, we'll be examining the claims for intelligent design that are actually embedded within this source material.
Okay, let's dive right in. The source describes the human brain using terms like extraordinary level of complexity. It even says it greatly exceeds any computational system made by man. That's a huge claim. And its architecture is apparently not yet completely understood. How does the source help us get our heads around that scale?
Well, the scale is truly staggering. We're talking approximately 86 billion neurons.
86 billion.
Yes, and billions upon billions of synapses connecting them. The material calls it a nuanced network of connections. Think of it like an incredibly dense, dynamic web. These connections are absolutely vital for everything the brain does, processing information, integrating stimuli, all in real time.
Wow.
And researchers like Amat and Wang really emphasize how deeply the brain's function is tied to its actual physical design.
Okay, so beyond just the sheer number of parts, what does the source say makes the human brain so distinct, especially when it comes to things like, higher order thinking, problem solving?
That's a key point in the source. It really zeroes in on the brain's capacity for that higher order thinking and problem solving. And this brings us to something called neuroplasticity.
Ah, yes, the brain changing itself.
Exactly. The brain's amazing ability to reorganize, to form new connections throughout our lives. Tokuhama Espinosa highlights this extensively. Now, our source takes this neuroplasticity and makes an interesting argument. It suggests this isn't just a random biological feature.
Right.
Instead, it posits that this adaptability, this capacity for growth, points towards what it calls intentional creation. The idea is that the brain was designed to be dynamic, anticipating change and learning.
So the complexity, both big and small picture, is presented as an argument against it all just happening by chance.
Precisely. From this perspective, random possibility isn't seen as a sufficient explanation for such an advanced system.
So looking at the bigger picture then, how does the source connect this sophisticated brain design to, everything that makes us human? Consciousness, emotions, even morality.
Well, the material suggests that the brain does much more than just keep the lights on, physiologically speaking. It's responsible for that complex tapestry of human behavior, cognition, and emotions. It makes the case that consciousness, moral reasoning, social interaction, what many consider the hallmarks of the human experience, they all arise from this intricate design.
So it's not just about survival. How does the source explain things like art, language, complex societies?
It argues the brain allows us to transcend mere survival functions. These abilities, art, language, governance, are presented as evidence for an intelligent creator, someone who, in this view, imbued humanity with the ability to reflect on existence and make moral choices.
So the main functions boil down to processing information, regulating the body, and enabling learning and memory.
That's a good summary, yes. Those are the core operational roles.
Okay, so we've looked inside the command center, the brain, but obviously it needs to talk to the rest of the body.
Absolutely.
And that's where the nervous system comes in. This incredibly complex network of neurons, synapses, neurotransmitters.
The whole communication infrastructure.
Right, and neurons are the basic messengers sending electrical signals.
Exactly. But the real magic, you can say, happens at the synapse, that tiny gap between neurons. Chemical messengers, the neurotransmitters, have to leap across that gap. The source calls it a finely adjusted exchange of critical information.
Finely adjusted, meaning precise.
Very precise. The source highlights the specificity, the right types of neurotransmitters fitting into the right receptors as a key indicator for its argument of intentional design.
And the nervous system itself, it has two main parts, right? The CNS and the PNS.
Correct. The central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, all the nerves branching out. Together, they regulate everything and allow us to react to the world.
Like that classic example, touching something hot and pulling your hand back before you even think about it.
Perfect example, that reflex. It shows the nervous system's incredibly rapid protection mechanisms.
And the source sees that reflex
as illustrating admirable design rather than random evolution. That's the perspective offered. And it's not just reflexes. The source even connects the nervous system to creativity, referencing Mihaly's model.
How so?
It suggests the nervous system facilitates creative expression by integrating information, emotions, cognitive functions. This capacity for innovation, again, is presented as implying purposeful creation.
Our source also seems to push back against some common ideas about how neural systems developed, specifically the idea that it's all just random evolutionary changes building up complexity.
Yes, it definitely presents a counter-argument there. It cites Berkman and Plutzer, suggesting that something like targeted evolution aligns better with the observed complexity and function.
Targeted evolution.
Well, the idea presented is that the patterns we see fit better with the narrative of an intentional creator, contradicting what it calls simplistic evolutionary explanations. The adaptability and specialization of different neuron types, it argues, imply a plan designed by intelligence.
Okay, stepping back a bit. It's really interesting to think about what all this means for, us, for human behavior, learning, how we educate people.
Absolutely. There are profound implications discussed.
We know that when we learn something, the pathways in our brain get stronger with repetition, right? And that shapes our habits, our preferences.
Exactly. And from the source's viewpoint, the brain is seen as designed with an inherent purpose.
Which is?
Navigating a changing world, learning from experience, and making decisions that align with, moral and ethical frameworks believed to be created. It also points to the limbic system, involved in emotions, suggesting it encourages social bonds and empathy, things vital for cooperation and culture.
So how does this translate into the classroom, into education?
There's a direct link drawn. For instance, the source mentions findings by Sulop and Tanner about multimodal learning.
Using different senses, visual, auditory, movement.
Right, and how that improves cognitive flexibility and school performance. It engages more of the brain's networks. And then there's research by Gottsman and Hoskins on social and emotional learning.
Learning about empathy, managing emotions.
Yes, and how that positively impacts the neural pathways related to empathy and moral reasoning. This reinforces the idea from the source that behavior is deeply intrinsically linked to emotional health and brain activity.
So the source sees these findings as kind of underscoring an educator's role, not just teaching facts, but also fostering moral and ethical growth.
Precisely. It suggests this aligns with what it calls a divine intention for how people should learn and interact.
It sounds like it leads to a specific educational philosophy.
It does. The source refers to a creationist vision. Because humans are seen as made in the image of God, there's an inherent dignity linked to our cognitive capacities. So this calls for education that really prioritizes character, ethical responsibility, right alongside academic achievement.
What about modern tools? AI, robotics in education. Does the source touch on that?
It does. It references work by Chu and others, and Ospenikova, noting how these technologies can actually mimic neural operations to create more personalized learning experiences.
Interesting. So technology isn't necessarily seen as conflicting.
Not necessarily. The key, according to Zoll, as cited in the source, is fostering an enlightened perspective, one that tries to harmonize the scientific understanding with these creationist beliefs, encouraging students to view the nervous system's design with respect and wonder. It's termed a double perspective.
A double perspective.
Yeah, recognizing the scientific marvels while being informed by a broader vision of the world that includes the source's particular viewpoint on creation.
Okay, it's undeniable that science, especially with tools like neuroimaging and genetics, has massively advanced our understanding of the brain.
No question.
So the big question is, how does the source propose reconciling this detailed scientific knowledge with the more spiritual or theological beliefs about our origins and purpose that it presents?
It tackles this directly. It cites Davidson, for instance, who claims the brain's remarkable design itself indicates intentionality, calling it a distinctive sign of the work of a creator.
And this ties back to the image of God idea.
Exactly. It aligns with that perspective that our cognitive abilities reflect a kind of divine project for purpose and intention, as the source puts it.
What about plasticity again? That ability to learn and adapt. How does that fit into this reconciliation?
Well, Bergeron and others highlight structural plasticity for adaptive learning. The source connects this to a dynamic interaction of nature and nourishment. Meaning, in this view, a creator grants us the basic capacity, the potential, and then through experience, learning, choices, nourishment, we develop talents and make moral decisions. Nature and nurture working together within a designed framework. This opens up what the source calls fertile soil for interdisciplinary work. Think neuroethics, neurotheology.
Studying the brain basis of morality or religious experience.
Right. The idea is that scientific methods can examine these aspects of human experience, but do so respectfully, alongside theological interpretations. Studying brain activity during moral decision-making, for example.
So this intersection of, say, spirituality and brain science is seen by the source as a platform for collaboration.
Yes, a unique platform, it says. Research on the neurological effects of things like prayer or meditation is presented as potentially offering a multidimensional vision of human behavior that is consistent with these creationist beliefs.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, it's really clear that exploring the brain and nervous system, just their sheer intricacy, gives us huge insights into behavior, intelligence.
Absolutely invaluable insights.
And the core argument from our source material today has been that these complexities aren't just, the result of unguided processes.
Right.
Instead, it proposes we can see the fingerprints of intentional creation here, offering that as an alternative narrative to purely evolutionary accounts.
And the source suggests that viewing our biological complexity through this particular lens, this lens of intentional design, doesn't just add to scientific knowledge. It believes it fundamentally shapes our moral obligations.
That's so.
Regarding how we learn, how we interact, how we build our societies. It implies a responsibility stemming from that perceived design.
Which leaves us, and you, the listener, with a really provocative question to think about further. If our minds, our mental faculties, are, as this source suggests, a determined creation, what does that imply?
What does that imply for the ethical management, the commitment, maybe even the reverence required in nurturing not just our own minds,
but also the minds of future generations? Something to definitely ponder.